Hello everyone, and welcome to the 169th episode of Analyzing Evil, featuring our patron pick for February 2024, Lord Shen from Kung Fu Panda 2. Lord Shen has been a top contender for patron pick of the month for a long time now, and it's fitting that he should see his day in the sun just a short while before the fourth film in this series is released. Out of all the Kung Fu Panda villains we've been given so far, Shen is perhaps the greatest of them all, not just in terms of villainy, but in conception and execution as well. And in this video, we're going to be diving into all the aspects of Shen that made him who he is, and that make him such a fascinating villain to see in action. Now without further ado, let's begin. A member of the well-respected noble peacock family of Gongmen City, Shen was born into a life of luxury and privilege by virtue of his family's wealth, station, and reputation as benevolent rulers who brought their people the awe-inspiring invention that is fireworks. Shen, however, was much more interested in the destructive capabilities of gunpowder, and his focus was ever on devising new ways to use it to enhance the power of his city's military capabilities, so he might one day obtain power and glory beyond anything that the simple adoration of a single city's population could bring him. However, dark fantasies and ambitions breed dark rewards, and the path that Shen chose was foretold by a soothsayer to end in his ultimate defeat by a warrior of black and white, lest he change his ways. This drove Shen to do the unthinkable, eradicate a population of animals who are defined by their white and black colorings, the pandas, a task at which he nearly succeeded in completing. Shen returned home from his conquest expecting his parents to marvel at his ingenuity, and thus acknowledge that what he aimed to accomplish with their invention was a vision that could supersede even the assuredness of prophecy, something that Shen assumed would be met with pride by his parents. Of course, Shen's parents were horrified upon learning of his misdeeds, and they promptly punished their son by banishing him from Gongmen City. Considering Shen's crime was the partial genocide of an entire population, I'd say banishment was quite the light punishment for him to receive. But for Lord Shen, the punishment his parents gave him was perceived as a grievous wrong. At one point in the film, when the very same soothsayer who foretold his defeat says to Shen that he needs to stop what he's doing so his parents can rest in peace, Shen remarks that his parents hated him and that they wronged him, to which the soothsayer counters that they in fact loved him, and that banishing him is what drove them to an early grave. Now both Shen and the soothsayer are right here, as in Shen's mind, the perceived wrong that his parents committed, his banishment, was a display of their hatred towards him. The truth is that his parents likely did love him as the soothsayer said, but love can only go so far, and I'm sure for their sake, as well as their sons, they hope that banishment might give Shen time to contemplate his actions and see the error of his ways. While that is the truth can often be warped in a person's mind by their own perception and biases, and while Shen in the aforementioned scene clearly shows some degree of regret at the way his relationship with his parents ended, his perception of their actions ensured that they were more so seen as villains by Shen, villains who denied him his birthright because they could not understand the greatness of his designs and the power and wealth it would bring not just him, but his family. And once this was denied to him by the ghosts of his past, Shen chose to bury them in favor of the future of grandeur and prestige that he believed surely awaited him. By the time the story of Kung Fu Panda 2 has begun, we see that Shen's personality has developed in accordance with his former station as a member of the Gongmen nobility and his own insidious proclivities. And Shen, while having a decent sense of humor at several points, is haughty, arrogant, snide, sadistic, and vindictive, a bird that struts around like the royalty he is, and one that's prone to grandiose speech patterns and gestures that do well to add to the arrogance that he expresses with every word he speaks. Along with the murderous way that Shen often chooses to speak, his appearance adds significantly to the darkness of his character, as his deathly white body, insidious red and black tail and plume markings that are reminiscent of many vile eyes bearing down upon you, a steely gray beak, dark encircled eyes, and sharp eyebrows as black as night, give Shen an aura of malice and cruelty that's as intimidating as it is elegant. However, Shen's appearance, aside from being sinister in nature, is intimately important to his character in a few different ways, as his appearance ties into something that we've already touched on a bit, that is one of the primary forces driving the stories in the Kung Fu Panda series, fate. Now in the Kung Fu Panda universe, fate, destiny, and prophecy are central elements that define the course of events in this world, and like all denizens of this animalistic version of China, Lord Shen was not immune to such mystical forces, as we already well know. But aside from the soothsayer's prophecy, there is another sign of a more subtle nature, that Shen's destiny was predetermined for him not when he began playing out his dark fantasies, but from the moment he was born. Shen, unlike his parents, was born almost entirely colorless, which for such vibrant birds as peacocks is quite the anomaly, and that's because Shen's coloration is an anomaly, a genetic anomaly to be specific. The reason Shen is mostly white is because he was born with leucism, which is a genetic condition that can manifest in many different types of animals that causes them to be born with a loss of pigmentation. Unlike albinism though, leucism does not cause pigmentation loss in the eyes, and it can cause either a partial or total loss of pigmentation within the affected over the rest of their bodies. tendencies, and Shen is partially leucistic, as we've already covered. Now, a common trope with villainous sons of virtuous parents is that they often have some sort of defining feature or coloration that makes them different from those around them, and these differences then end up contributing to their dark descent towards evil due to many different factors, like bullying, ostracization, or mystical forces that have marked them in such a way as to denote their significance as an individual who's predisposed to become evil and who houses an inclination towards darker tendencies. In Shen's case, it's the latter, as there is a connection to Shen's coloration and Chinese culture and philosophy, a concept that's known as wuxing, a short description of which we can find on the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophies. The Chinese term wuxing, 5 processes, or 5 phases, refers to a 5-fold conceptual scheme that is found throughout traditional Chinese thought. These 5 phases are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. They are regarded as dynamic, interdependent modes or aspects of the universe's ongoing existence and development. Now, wuxing is applied to many different aspects of society and Chinese culture, like medicine, martial arts, and music. But as far as Shen's character is concerned, we're only going to focus on one thing in particular, the color white, and what it's meant to represent when applied to wuxing. In wuxing, the color white is used to represent metal, and considering Shen's plans involve the extensive use and manufacturing of weapons made of metal, there's the obvious connection to be made here. Another more interesting connection, though, which may or may not be a stretch, can be found in the livestock representation of the color white in Chinese culture, the chicken. And well, chickens are birds like Shen, so there's that, but chickens and peacocks are also in the same family of animals, Phasianidae, so perhaps Shen being a peacock is meant to serve as another connection to this phase of wuxing. Both of these notions are interesting enough, but the most appropriate connection between Shen, wuxing, and the color white is what white represents in the cycle of life, death. In Chinese culture, like in many cultures around the world, white is often used to symbolize purity and innocence. But unlike in Western cultures, which typically use the color black as the most appropriate color to wear when mourning the dead, traditional Chinese funeral attire and other objects of mourning are white. White representing purity and innocence, while also representing death, might seem like a contradiction, but in Chinese tradition, it's believed that just like before you were born and during your infancy, you again become pure and innocent, which is a beautiful association to make. However, there is nothing pure and innocent about Lord Shen, and Shen's white color is meant to represent death because bringing death to others has been the foundation of his dream ever since he was young, and that dream was power unlimited. Through gunpowder, his parents had crafted colored beauty and wonder for their people. But Shen didn't see the colors, only the explosions that birthed them. And those explosions in turn would be the mechanism that Shen would use to secure his position as lord of not just Gongmen City, but all of China. And for a man like Lord Shen, the road to such a throne would inevitably be paved with thousands upon thousands of corpses. In his efforts to accomplish this dread feat following his banishment, I'm sure there was plenty of opportunity for Shen to murder countless others to create his underground empire. His foundries and factories he used to forge his cannons and other weapons of war undoubtedly built on stolen land that he painted with the blood of innocence. However, though Shen was able to barge his way into Gongmen City, murder the esteemed Thundering Rhino, and struck immense fear into the people of his city over the span of a few days, his dread plot to conquer and subjugate all of China was ended shortly after it began. And though he tried as best as he could to prove that he was mightier than the prophecy that foretold his destruction, in the end, Lord Shen failed.
But why? Why is it always the case that characters whose lives are ruled by prophecies always fail to avoid that prophecy despite how hard they try to do so? Because a prophecy isn't a guarantee that your life will turn out a certain way no matter what you do. It's a guarantee that your life will turn out the way a prophecy dictates if you continue down the path you were on when that prophecy was made. So with that in mind, was it Poe's fist that really sealed Shen's fate? Was Shen really doomed to fall to the Dragon Warrior no matter what he did? No, not at all. A common trait that villains like Lord Shen possess in abundance is hubris, and when these villains are faced with the inevitability of prophecy, their hubris in believing that they can somehow overcome the odds if they just try hard enough is what ends up contributing to the fulfillment of that prophecy. But again, these prophecies do not speak of what will happen, they offer you insight into what could happen should you continue down the path that you've chosen. And the only real way to circumvent prophecy is to change who you are and what you intend to do with your life. Shen could never have changed his fate by following through with his dark designs. He could only have done so by accepting that what he was doing was wrong and would lead to his untimely death unless he changed his ways. Unfortunately for Shen though, not even the immediate threat of defeat by the prophesized warrior of black and white could change who Shen was, as Shen is a man who was focused only on his hatred and his desire to prove himself and his vision superior to the powers that denied him, a man that believed that happiness is not something that can come naturally, but something that needs to be taken. And when Shen is presented with Poe's serenity at the end of this story, he is dumbfounded by Poe's ability to find inner peace despite the fact that he also experienced tragedy in his life, that tragedy being his recent discovery and belief that Shen murdered his parents. Poe remarks during this exchange that none of what happened in the past matters as much as what they choose to do now, and that's absolutely true. The pain of the past will always hurt to some degree, but the pain can and will lessen as you continue to live your life, and fill it with things that bring you enough joy to surmount that pain. But for Lord Shen, the man who believed he had been so wrong by the ones he loved because he was so right, there was nothing short of a burst of introspective clarity that could have saved Shen from his prophesized end. And that's a shame, for Shen was as intelligent as he was devilishly cunning, and if he had pointed his talents towards mirroring the good that his own parents had brought to their world, he might have gone down as one of the most well-respected and beloved figures in all of Chinese history. Shen, by the time he was given the option to change his ways in the face of his defeat, was so thoroughly ingrained in the darkness of his own making that all hope for his redemption had been lost. And so the story of Lord Shen must inevitably end with his ultimate destruction, a man who was unfortunately crushed under the weight of his own evil. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Analyzing Evil, and I hope you've enjoyed. What are your thoughts on Lord Shen? Let me know down below, and leave a suggestion for a villain you'd like to see featured while you're at it. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. A big thank you to all of my subscribers, my patrons, and anyone who's decided to honor me with a super thank. And a most vile thank you to those whose names you're seeing on screen now. Join the channel's Discord server and subreddit to interact with myself and the community, and follow me on the social media platforms listed below to keep up with the channel. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon.